UFC 316 just concluded, and realistically, Merab Dvalishvili is one of the most overpowered, goated fighters in the history of the entire sport. And unfortunately, Suga Shane, Main, one of my favorite fighters, I think that the Suga show is well and truly over. And I spoke on this in a video I made about a month back. And I think that unfortunately, our boy Suga Sean O Malley, I think he's absolutely cooked in this matchup. I think he'll lose again badly. And I think that his career as a superstar and as a champion in this division, I think those days are over. And, I spoke on how Suga Sean was going to lose this fight again. Merab is just a terrible stylistic matchup. I honestly expected him to make it a closer fight, to make it a closer decision, maybe a split decision here in this fight. I ultimately did pick Merab to win via decision. And Merab Dvalishvili looked even more impressive, and he got his first submission in the UFC. Now, in my opinion, Merab just did what Merab does. What I saw from Suga Sean O Malley last night was he kind of just, he didn't give up, but when everything that he changed, everything that he worked on, everything that he thought that he improved really just wasn't working for him, I saw that really mentally bother him. And, the pressure, the pace of Merab is just absolutely alien. Nobody has been able to deal with it. No matter your skill set, no matter how good you are, no matter your attributes, no one is able to deal with this pressure. And, I kind of saw Sean O Malley, even though he has done this throughout his career, it is his striking style, just the way he was retreating so much against Merab, that really showed a lack of mental toughness, in my opinion. Now, obviously, that's going to happen against a fighter with the style of Merab, and also just the takedown threat being in the back of your mind. But I really wanted to see Sean plant his feet a little more, throw with a little more emphasis, a little more, viciousness upstairs to the head. He was kind of looking for that body shot again, where, I think the reason for that was he was so worried about the takedown. If he missed upstairs, he just didn't really have the confidence that was necessary to be able to land the kill shot. There were a couple of moments in the fight, the knee got close, he landed a good uppercut, the left hand, he broke off the clinch, spun out and threw a mean left hand that barely missed. That, if that would have landed clean, would have been good, but shoulda, coulda, woulda, realistically. And unfortunately, what I saw from Suga Sean O Malley last night, I think that he's going to go on a pretty bad losing streak, realistically. He's already lost twice to Merab. And I spoke in my last video about Suga Sean going on a career downwards trajectory. I won't say a downfall. Because I do think that he's going to be able to get wins in the future. He's going to have favorable stylistic matchups. Maybe he fights a Henry Cejudo or something like that within the next year or so. But I really don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we see Sean O Malley go on a 4-5 fight losing streak. There's a very high possibility that he will fight either Jan or Umar Nurmagomedov next in a 5-rounder. I think that he will lose both of those fights. I think Umar will be able to sub him, and I think over the course of 5, Jan will be able to beat him even easier than last time. The first fight was close. It was a clear robbery. Peter Yan won that fight. The judges gave it to Sean. I think over the course of 5, it would clearly go to Peter Yan. So I think in Suga Sean's next 2 fights, if he doesn't fight a Henry Cejudo, something like that, an old head, a favorable stylistic matchup, if he fights Umar and Jan next, that's going to be a 4-fight losing streak. Corey Sandhagen is about to fight Merab. Merab will beat Corey Sandhagen just like he did O'Malley, and then O'Malley's going to fight Corey Sandhagen. I'm not 100% sure anymore that Sean O'Malley can beat Corey. Corey has improved so much. He's looking better than ever in his last fight. The grappling has improved tremendously. And I think that if a fight between Sean O'Malley and Corey Sandhagen would be incredibly competitive, and I might actually lean Sandhagen after what I saw out of their last 2 performances. And it's just insane to think of Sean O'Malley going on a 5-fight losing streak here. If you look into the future, about a year and a half, 2 years, we could definitely see Sean O'Malley take those 3 losses to Umar, Jan, and Corey Sandhagen. And that would just be a very, very unfortunate career downfall in terms of his trajectory and his star power, his pull, his aura. how excited you get to see him fight. After he fought Aljo, Suga Sean was just bleeding aura out of his ears, and everybody thought that he was going to become the bantamweight GOAT. But unfortunately, I think that at this point, it's really kind of showing that, his run to the top, his win over Jan, his win over Aljo, looking back on it, you really have to take those with a grain of salt. Like I said, I think that the Jan fight was a clear robbery. If you really want to dissect it and make a very biased argument towards Sean, I'll listen to it. You can make the argument, but I think that it was clear that Jan won that fight. But you can make the argument for Suga Sean. And then you look at his fight with Aljamain Sterling, beautiful knockout. Didn't do very good at winning minutes in the first round, but, he eventually landed that right hand. But don't forget, Aljamain Sterling has a huge weight cut. The chin might have been handicapped there. And it was a very, very short turnaround. He fought Henry Cejudo in May. Then he had to turn around basically 2 months later, fight Suga Sean in August. So, you got to take that championship win against Aljo with a grain of salt now. And I think that Suga Sean is finally kind of getting to that point in his career where we're seeing that he got rushed. We're seeing that the circumstances surrounding his championship run to the top were formulated in a way that made it really easy for him. Maybe he's not as good as we think that he was, but his defensive grappling looked very good in the second round. He did better at defending takedowns until, like I said, he realized that he just wasn't going to be able to get the offense off, even if he defended, and that's where the mental lapses started to occur. Wouldn't let his hands go. Merab started charging him and eventually gets that Darce. And I really do think that Sean O'Malley could have fought out of that position if he really, really wanted to. I mean, you saw him in that position multiple times in their first fight. And Merab Dvalishvili literally doesn't have a single UFC stoppage other than the exhaustion TKO over Marlon Moraes. I don't really take that TKO too seriously. It was an exhaustion TKO. His real only solid quality finish that, really put a stamp on it in terms of Merab was his submission last night over Sean O'Malley. And I really just did not like to see that in terms of Sean. Merab Dvalishvili is a decision guy. I don't want people to start making a narrative of now he's hunting for finishes. He's trying to be more dangerous. Yeah, he landed some good shots on the feet like he did in their first fight. But, in terms of that grappling exchange where, Sean rolled over on his back and they were in like the north-south position for a second. And then eventually Merab wraps up that Darce choke. It was a concerning look for Sean O'Malley. I think that Umar Nurmagomedov will definitely be able to exploit the submission defense if Merab is able to. And, it's really sad to see, unfortunately. I wanted Sean O'Malley to beat Merab, move up to 145, fight Volk or Ilya, whoever's champ at the time. I was really looking forward to the future potential of Suga Sean O'Malley's career, but it looks like that is not going to be the case. But let's not just look past how fucking goated Merab is. Marlon Moraes, title challenger. Jose Aldo, one of the goats of the sport. Peter Yan, one of the goats of bantamweight, one of the most technical, skilled fighters ever. Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist, double champ. Umar Nurmagomedov, undefeated fighter. Nurmagomedov wrestling. Suga Sean O'Malley, undefeated at the time, beat him twice in a difficult stylistic matchup against like a long, rangy striker with nasty KO power. Merab is too goated. His grit, his determination, his grappling threat, his pressure, his just pure, he just disregards whatever's coming back at him. It doesn't matter if Sean's throwing the hardest straight shot down the pipe you've ever seen, or Umar Nurmagomedov has head kicked him 10 times. Merab's going to keep coming forward. He's going to always impose his will. And it's not even like you really have to break down the X's and O's that much. He's just so effective at implementing what he wants to do to you. He never takes a step back. He always fights smart, and he never gives up on himself. And he's just an absolute dog. And I think that, at this point, Merab Dvalishvili really genuinely should be considered a top 5 fighter of all time. When you look at his loss versus Ricky Simone, that was kind of fluky, and he lost his first UFC fight via split decision. So I don't really even take those 2 losses all that seriously. He's absolutely dominated everybody since then. He's taken out just top 30 after top 30 fighter on the GOAT list. And he's just taking out insane levels of competition. And it's like he's not even that good. He's just an absolute alien, EPO freak from the mountains. I mean, this guy is just a quintessential, example of somebody who just wants it more than everybody else. And you have to respect that. And realistically, I think that Merab will retire without ever losing. I mean, unless this guy is just fighting everybody in trilogies, it's going to be Merab versus Peter Yan 3. It's going to be Merab versus Umar 3. He's just going to keep beating everybody. Who's going to beat this guy in the 135-pound division? He's going to beat Corey Sandhagen. Let's not get it twisted. If he can beat Yan and he can beat Suga Sean O Malley, two guys that have very similar skill sets as a Corey Sandhagen, Merab's going to do the exact same thing. He's going to win himself a decision. I don't think he's going to sub Corey like he did Sean, but he's going to win another decision. And after that, he's completely cleaned out 135. He's going to be fighting rematches. He's going to be fighting trilogies. And unless this guy just eventually gets fluked because of old age and his chin's gone and he's just less durable when he's like 37, 38, he's never going to lose just purely based off of skill or somebody outpointing him, somebody leading him onto a shot that he doesn't see. It's going to be, Merab kind of beating himself with old age. But I think it's very realistic that we see Merab win 2 or 3 more fights and then just retire as one of the GOATs of the sport because, like I said, the level of competition, the way he's doing it, the fact that he just doesn't have that many skills on display, but he just continuously shows the effectiveness of what he tries to implement in his fights. It's just incredibly impressive to me. So yeah, that was my recap of the main event for last night. Suga Sean O Malley, unfortunately, might be cooked, and Merab is just beyond goated at this point. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a good rest of your day.